Okay.
It's just based around telling stories. You know, I really believe in storytelling. I always have. As a child, I loved listening to stories, whether that was Richard Scarry or the value of books that I had as a child. Books and stories based around values and based around the goodness of society and how individuals can impact, and how small groups of individuals, like Margaret Mead said, you know, it only takes a small group of people to change the world, and indeed they're the only people who actually have, you know.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Round Table. In today's episode, I got to hang out with Ian Hamilton, who is a loving husband, a father, and also a teacher who started up his own wilderness school. But I don't want to give away too much, as I'd love for you all to stick around to hear what he shared. So, you know the drill. Let's get to it. Hey guys, welcome back to the Round Table. Today I'm in this special location in Weber at a special guest joining me today, who I'm honored to have the privilege to join me today at the Round Table, who does such great work in helping out the kids and families in the areas that he's covered. But look, I won't give away too much, as I'd love for you all to stick around and hear more about the great work he does. So before we kick off, as always, the round table symbolizes a safe space where stories are shared, voices heard, and lessons learnt. So pull up a seat and join me on the journey, because every story you hear matters. Ian, welcome to the round table.
Thank you, Tara. Yeah. Thank
Look,
you for having me.
I'm honored to have you at this time too, because it was like a last minute kind of a request to see if we could both catch up at the same time. Because I understand you've got your own busy schedule, families, and stuff like that. So I appreciate it's time for you to share with me what you do.
Yeah, it's special. Yeah, it's good that the timing aligns. When things align, you know, it feels right. So, yeah, it feels beautiful Sunday here on Lake Weber. I just want to give gratitude and acknowledgement to the elders, past and present, who have looked after this country since time immemorial. I'm going to say there's definitely initiation that happened out in this land, just on the lake just behind us, and yeah, I feel pretty privileged to live here and be close to the coast. Yeah, I was saying we went for a surf this morning, and it's a pretty special part of the world to live in. And I feel really grateful to live here and help my family to connect and help other people to connect to country on this space in Kabi country.
Cool. So, like, before we kick off, do you mind just sharing with us, the viewers that may not know who you are, just a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, my name's Ian Hamilton. I've been teaching in the field and in the classroom for over 30 years now. I In 2013, I started a school called my own school called Kookaburra Culture Wilderness School, which is in the lineage of wilderness schools that have mainly come out of North America. And I started that school. I ran it for a year, and life turns out that a whole lot of synchronicities happened to get us to move up to Queensland. There was basically look, I'm gonna dive into this early. So this is how I came to be sitting here. So we lived in Mullumbimby in 2013. We'd just come back from the United States. I've been teaching like 20 years up to that time, and then I toured over the United States, over in Connecticut.
What were you teaching at the time?
Well, I was doing relief teaching, so I could have gone and got my teacher's license over there, but there was a lot of hoops to jump through, and I was working in these concrete jungles with these kids.
When you say relief teaching, is that like a fill-in?
Yeah, it's a fill-in. Supply teaching. Sometimes they're called supply, sometimes they're called relief. So I just come in like when teachers are sick or they need leave or whatever, and I just come in and take over a class. And you know, I did that in place. I've done that a lot. I'm actually doing that currently at the moment, doing contract work for 5 or 6 weeks, or just relieving teachers. And Don't actually have full-time work. I've had it a lot of time, but for the last 4 or 5 years, I haven't been able to get it, and there's a reason for that. Check that guy out.
Ho ho.
Just for the viewers, that's a stork that's just walked past, and he's a very elegant creature. Anyway, better get back to it. But so yeah, we just got back from the United States. We were living in Mullumbimby, and I was trying to get work down there. It's a pretty small country town. If anyone knows Mullumbimby, they call it the biggest small town in Australia. And it is big. It's got a big energetic to it. But work was hard to get. Teaching work was hard to get anyway. And what I did was I he was just trying to get a picture of the bird. Didn't quite work. Flew off. But yeah, so I just did relief teaching over there. We'd come back to Mullumbimby, and I was in the house. Didn't have work that day. Indigenous elder, my wife's mother married an Indigenous elder called Bob Randall. Amazing fella, and he lived with us in Mullumbimby. And lots of people came to see him because he's the real deal. He was part of the stolen generation, and he managed to get through some incredible struggle and trauma in his life, and he managed to move past that, move beyond that, and he just was a very giving man, and lots of people came to see him. Anyway, this one day, this woman from Noosa Pengari Steiner School, which is a Steiner school just down the road from where I'm living, she came down to see him and was chatting with Bob, and halfway through their conversation, which wasn't a podcast, it was just a yarn around a table, she got a phone call from the school, and yeah, things changed very rapidly. There'd been a bus accident over in New Zealand, so the outdoor education teacher that was over in New Zealand with a class 10 had got in an accident, serious accident, 2 fatalities. He died. A student had died in the seat behind him, Gabrielle. Lots of significant injuries, huge trauma. So Shelley had to go, teacher, she had to go back up from Mullumbimby back up here to this to Noosa area to be with the school community, and I was just like, whoa, what just happened there, you know? And Bob, being the incredible man he was, he just said, look, I'll drop everything, I'll come up with you. Do you want me to come up? And she said, no, not this time, maybe later, we'll work it out. Anyway, so I'm standing there on the deck of the house, and I'm talking to my wife, Kristen. I'm just like, what just happened then? It's like, this is not good. A couple of days settle, and I'm like, well, what's going on? This is what I love to do. You know, I love educating children in the outdoors. And there'd just been this tragedy in the school. It was a very difficult letter to write, but I wrote the letter. I wrote a letter of application to the school and said, look, I know what's just happened. If you're in any way interested, just let me know, and I'll come up. And I came up like about a week or so later.
Wow.
I'd never even been to Noosa. I'd barely been to Queensland, and had an interview, and they offered me the job. And I was like, oh, okay. That means we have to move states. That means I have to uproot my family. That means I have to take on a job from a guy who's never going to be able to do a handover. And when I got up to the school, massive, huge tragedy, a lot of trauma, a lot of unresolved trauma. You know, it was difficult, it was very difficult, and the first year was hard. And what it meant, also necessitated, was I just started Kookaburra Culture Wilderness School at Brunswick Heads, and I've been running it for a year. I just started to build community, because we all know how long it takes to build community. Like, you can't do it in weeks and months. It takes years. And I just got the first year under my belt, 2013 to 14. I had all these families. It was building. I could feel the momentum. And I was like, man, well, I got to leave it. So I can't do it. You know, I can't travel from Noosa down to Mullumbimby. I've got to leave it. And the family said to me, you can't leave it. I mean, you can leave it, but you have to find someone to take it over. I'm like, And it was a bit of pressure. It was a massive pressure moving up here and selling the house. And well, actually, we didn't sell it. We rented it initially and that. But I found this other guy, Rowan, and I had met him before, and he'd sort of expressed interest in what I was doing, and I just handed it over to him. I said, "Look, here's the families, here's the place. This is what I do. You do your own thing. You can have everything. Yeah, not that I've got a lot to give you, but you just can't have the name because I wanted to keep the name." Because there's something in a name, and he's been running that school now down there. I've contacted him a few times for over 10 years successfully as a wilderness bush school down there. He calls it Bruns Bush School. Look it up if you're in that area. He's a good guy and he does amazing things on the land down there. So
Actually, what inspired you to start
yeah, that's a
Kookaburra?
good question. So what inspired me to start was my belief, and when everything comes down to it, it comes down to belief, is that education is the key to change everything. To be able to solve all these issues, we have to be able to. And I want to even. Education is a tricky thing. I'm gonna express this because this is important in the podcast. The original word, I've stuffed this up a few times, but look it up if you like. It comes from the Latin root, and it means to draw out. Now, what we do in education now is we just put stuff in. We just shove stuff into these kids' heads and stuff like that. And it's not functional and it doesn't work well. And so I was, my belief was that education is the key to changing people's lives and changing our connective structure to nature, changing our connective process and philosophical understanding of how we connect to each other as human beings, the way we connect to our animals, our dogs and cats, everything. And if we go back 50,000 years, 60,000 years on this planet, education was just about looking and listening and asking questions. And the elders wouldn't answer your questions. I know that. They didn't answer the questions. They would not answer the questions unless you asked it 3 times. And even when you asked it 3 times, they would give you some cryptic answer. There was no directive, explicit teaching back in those days. It was all about watching, listening, and learning. And I was like, that's what I want to be able to do. That's what I want to do in education. So that's why I became a teacher. With very early on, I was 21 when I had my first class in small country town in New South Wales, Mudgee, which is a wine country now. And it was a tough gig. I was very young, very naive, very
Green.
green, real green, and really, I'm going to say I had big picture, but I couldn't implement because I didn't have the experience. So I've taught in a lot of schools now. I've had a lot of different experiences over the last 30 years. And I was just saying to Taj before, I just feel like only now in the last year or two have I really started to step into step in my power as a teacher, as an educator, as a facilitator, as a mentor. The word teacher can sometimes get people's backs up, and I know people out there with maybe not had good experiences with teachers, and I get that, and for that I apologize on my behalf, because it's a really special profession. It's something that I never really wanted to do anything else. Like, I've done a lot of different educational pieces. I've worked for outdoor education centres, I've worked for wilderness schools, I've worked at Montessori schools, I've worked for Steiner schools, I've worked for government schools, I've worked for Catholic schools, I've worked for private schools, I've worked in the United States, I've worked in Scotland, I've worked in Australia. It's all I want to do. It doesn't change. The whole concept of working with children, and now adults too, I'm realising more and more that I need to be working with adults as well. It's about connective practice. It's about us connecting. No learning happens unless you're safe, and it's really cool that you call that in that introduction, that we feel safe, the children feel safe, we feel safe, you feel safe in this environment of learning space. Let's just call it a learning space. learning space, learning place. You feel safe, and then you got to create that connection. There's a connection there. And sometimes with the boys, I'll just talk about NRL and the Brisbane Broncos, or an AFL team. With the girls, it could be music. Sometimes it's sport with them too. It doesn't matter what it is. Just find an in. I've got to find an in. And if I can find that in, then they go, oh, this guy's all right. He might have something to tell me. I might have something to learn from him. And I'm saying right now, I know I have something to learn from them. So as a teacher, I see it as a very collaborative exercise. It's not me inputting, it's me facilitating the drawing out of what that gift is for that child at that time. And there's no better way to do it than in nature. I can do it in the classroom, but I do not get the same results as I do when I'm working out in the outdoors with children in a group. The transformational the way people transform in that environment is it can't even be described. I've sat in programs and done programs with other outdoor educators and facilitators, and at the end we've sat down to do a debrief, and we've all just looked at each other and said, what just happened then? We saw this group of children who were closed and angry and frustrated and dysfunctional and just at each other become this harmonious, beautiful, joyous, vibrant group of human beings. How does that happen in a week? And it does. It does happen. It can. I've seen it happen in a week, and I've definitely seen it happen in 2 and 3 week blocks if I can take groups out of people out for a longer period. I've seen it happen in a weekend even. You can do it over a weekend. The time is illustrative of functional transformation. Like, you can get bigger transformational results, over longer period of time. But it's hard. It's hard to find the time. It's been hard to find this time just to do this interview, and it's hard to cut out chunks when we're all trying to meet the needs of our families and our communities, and I understand that. I comprehend how that works, but I really do feel that getting people out in nature, and it doesn't matter what your nature piece is. If it's surfing, it's surfing. For me, it's surfing, it's running. For other people, it's badminton, or it's like mowing the lawn. It doesn't matter. It's just something that you can do in a natural place. And the more natural place it is, I think it makes it easier. But then again, my son just went to Japan, and of all places in Tokyo, and those Japanese, they have incredible gardens and stuff. So they use their gardens as their natural places, and the little bonsai trees they make and all that sort of stuff. So there's so many different ways to do it. I've even seen and read books about where you're in the most urbanized environment in the world, and like you could just find a plant and you can just sit with that plant, and it's in a pot plant and it's on a rooftop, and you're 50 stories in the sky and you've still got a bird flying over you.
So, going back, I suppose one of the key elements too in helping the younger generation, the kids and that, would be like the right environment can kind of also help with them being educated in such a way they feel relaxed and open to wanting to learn something.
Yeah, I think the environment is really key. And look, everyone knows that since the 1990s, this environment has changed. The internet came online in the last 5 years, maybe 7, 8 years. Every child has got access to a phone. Not every child, but a lot of them. Almost every child in high school I go to, they have phones, and primary school as well, very young. We see the children sometimes as young as 2 and 3. They're on their iPads and they're on their phones, and it's addictive. It's hugely addictive for everybody. They're very powerful computers that we have, and they can do. They're great tools. We're recording on them. They're incredible tools, but they can also suck you in and take you away from your own connection to place and space and family and community.
Mm.
And, credence and credit to the state governments of Australia, because in the last 2 years they've said no, children can't have them in school. And so there's actually a 6-hour window for every child in school, who are actually in schools, to where they supposedly can't actually have their phone. And most schools I go to, it's pretty well
Monitored.
policed. It's the kids respect it, and a lot of the kids respect it because they know that they're addicted, and they know they need a break from it. And so part of this, this getting children out into wild spaces or into the wilderness or just natural places is about getting them away from that technology as well. So it's a two-edged sword. One is that they don't probably spend, our young generation doesn't spend as much time in nature as my generation did. And then my father's and my mother's generation, they're all walking to school. They're spending time in nature walking to school. How many kids walk to school these days? Not many. They're all on their electric scooters and electric bikes, and that's cool. But it's not the same thing, and it's not the same timepiece as well. So yeah, there's a really important piece around having the children to connect back into their own sense of who they are and their own spirit, because this technology that we all can see, you can always find someone who's doing something better than you. You can always find someone who's prettier, more beautiful, is a better sports star, is a better singer. They're always going to be out there, and it's in your face all the time when you search for it. And then the algorithms will make you find it when you start plugging those things in. We know how that works, and so it makes you feel defeated. Everyone feels defeated in that construct. You feel like, well, I'm never going to be good enough. I'm never going to be worthwhile because I can never sing as well as Taylor Swift or whatever it is, It's not good for us, we need to use this technology as a tool like we're doing now for a podcast, to get stories out, to get our music out, to get our artwork out. Great medium for that. Fantastic. And what a gift. But it's just like any tool, man. If you use a hammer the wrong way, you're going to hurt your thumb. So we gotta be careful, really careful. And these young people, they're just, as adults, I can say I get lost in it from time to time.
Yeah, I'm guilty.
And so, as children, they just don't have that same level of discipline, maybe, or experience. It's very hard. It's very hard to get off it. We know the dopamine hit we get from it. So yeah, I want that slow burn of connective practice, of learning more and more about the creatures that are in my landscape, helping the children know more about those creatures, the insects, the animals, getting to know which direction the wind's blowing, where the sun rises. Some of the kids, they still don't know the sunrise in the east, We're coming towards solstice. What does that mean? What does it mean to track your own footprint? What does it mean to track your own emotions, your own heart space? What does it mean when someone triggers you and what's just happened there? What's that about for you? All these things are critical for us as humanity to investigate and ask questions about. And I find that when I am in a low point in my life, I can just go into nature and I just find so much solace. It's a therapy. It's a therapy being out here. It's a therapy being. I live on this Lake Waiba. It's the Waiba means, for people who don't know, it means stingray. And I tell you what, there's stingrays in there, brothers and sisters. There's lots. Not a lot of fish, but there are stingrays because they're the filter feeders and stuff. But it's a beautiful space. It's 10 square kilometers, and that's my front yard. And what a gift, And when I'm just overrun and I've just got too much going on, I can just go and sit on that lake. And this morning, it was crystal clear, flat, and beautiful. Other days, it's really windy and it's choppy and stuff. Doesn't matter. It changes. It's got a thousand faces. And I'm just, nothing else matters. There's a Metallica song right there.
Yeah.
Nothing else matters
Absolutely.
when you're in that place. And it can be a river for you. For some people, it's the ocean. For me, it's the ocean also. But yeah, nature has this incredible capacity to heal us, to give us back to ourselves, to reflect about, wow, you are one speck of sand on one big beach.
Mm.
And it's like, wow, my problems are my problems. I'm not gonna pretend they don't exist, because they do. But there's a lot of other people out there who are also trying to find their way in a complex world.
Yeah.
And our young people coming into this place, it's a complex world. I got 3 children. Dakota is 20. He's 19. He's 20 in February. And what a joy. He loves his cars. He loves his surfing. And, he's an incredible human being. And he's had to navigate for the last 20 years. 2006, he was born. And then I've got Maya, who's my middle child, an incredible artist and culture. She's a creative. She's a creative being, musician. She's really coming into her own, playing her guitar and singing. A gorgeous angelic voice. So trying to get her to encourage her to bring that voice out, because you want to hear it. And then Sage, my youngest, she's 13, Maya's 16. So I got my own children. They're all incredible in their own way. And I look at it, as a father, and I'm like, what? How do I navigate on this planet now? How do I be a good role model, or just someone who my children can look to, and they can take the piss like they do. That's fine. but I also want them to know that I take my job seriously. Not that it's a job; it's just something I love to do, and they see that. They've been out on some programs with me. There's the Kookaburra. That's my totem, and it's serious business, like doing something that you love. It's serious. When you find something you love, it becomes serious business. And when I say that tongue in cheek, because it becomes also joyful business. And so I'm in love with this teaching thing, with this education thing. I'm in love with what I do, and I'm in love with the landscape I'm on, and really just trying to find and connect in with community and other people who want to help me to facilitate this, to build the community of what I'm trying to do with Kookaburra Culture Wilderness School.
Yeah. You've also, I've also read up about learning the teachings of the Indigenous, where there was this coyote mentoring. Can you kind of share what the coyote mentoring is all about, and how's that kind of tied everything together to help you run the school?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's interesting you asked that question after that Kookaburra fella called there, because the coyote mentoring, the coyote in Native American or North American tradition is the trickster. He's the trickster. He plays tricks on you. He will never give you a straight answer. He will never directly answer your question. She will always make you hunt. You got to go on a hunt. You got to go on a journey. You'll be given small pieces of the puzzle, and it's like a puzzle, and it's a puzzle you'll never actually solve. But you're given pieces of the puzzle to be able to move to this next stepping stone in your journey. So that coyote mentoring is part of what I like to do within the school, Kookaburra Culture Wilderness School, that I do. In Australian tradition, the crow has that element of trickster, but also I really feel the Kookaburra does as well. He's very astute. If you've ever seen and watched a Kookaburra, they are on point seemingly all the time. And what are they doing? They're hunting, but they're laughing, and they're stealing the damn sausage out of your hand. They're taking I've seen them take mince out of a pot where I've been standing over it. They're always looking for their own little bit, and they're also very, very gentle, beautiful, soft creatures. That's why I named it after the Kookaburra. It's in respect to that creature that gives us so much joy, and people from other countries come to this country and they go, what the hell was that noise? because it's raucous and it's loud and
Mm.
it's laughing and it's Australia. It's quintessentially this country. It's a bit rough around the edges and it's a bit big and open and spacious
Loud,
and loud,
proud.
loud, yeah, loud and proud. So yeah, that coyote mentoring, and look, to me, it comes back to Indigenous wisdoms as well. Because I've been fortunate enough to be out onto homeland country in Pitjantjatjara country, out in the desert, quite a few times, and I've seen it in other places. That Indigenous way in most cultures that I've seen is not a directive, explicit teaching methodology. It's more around the listening, it's more around the watching, and it's more around asking questions, and then you'll get told a story. You won't get told a directive, this is how you make fire. You might get told the story of the plants you might need to gather to be able to make those spindle sticks to be able to make the fire.
Wow.
And then you might get told the story of what it actually means to make fire, and then you might get told, and you might have to work really hard to get it, and so yeah, it's not a fast food. It ain't no fast food, quick serve, instant gratification piece. And there's a great saying: "There's no shortcuts to any place worth going."
Mm.
And I sometimes say to the children, like, when they go, "What's the answer? What's the answer? What do I have to do here? Tell me what to do." It's like, there ain't no shortcuts to any place worth going, because I can give you the answer and you'll be gratified and you'll do it, but you won't have learnt anything, and you didn't work for it. And we all know anything you work for, you value, and anything you don't work for, it's hard to value it. There's the bird again. He's over the back.
Cool. They all want to get in. Be amazing if he walked behind us.
Yeah, you got to come this way.
So yeah, okay. For the kids and the families that have come through the school, what's some of the cool, memorable stories that you can share with us that you've seen with some of these kids and the families?
We've done amazing things. I got to go back to when I did some work for Two Coyotes Wilderness School over in the United States. So it's called Two Coyotes for a reason. And definitely coyote mentoring was used over there. So
Hey guys, thanks again for tuning back in. And if you're finding value in today's show, as always, I always humbly request that you like, share, and hit that subscribe button so I can continue to grow the channel and reach out to more local charities and individuals that have made an impact in the community. So, you know the drill. Let's get back to it.
we did summer, winter, spring, and autumn and fall programs over there, holiday programs, and we do programs through the term. So my goal is to run a program one day a week. One day a week here on Waybar, one day a week in the southern part of the sunny coast, and one day a week up in Gympie and stuff for families, whether their children are in school or homeschooled or out of school or whatever. What did we do? Geez, man, we made fire through friction. So we learnt bow drill over there, and we learnt hand drill over there, which was this incredible connective practice for me to learn how to make fire in the traditional way. Yeah, we use flint and steel too, which is pretty fun. We use matches. We use lighters. We just made fire. And then what did we do with that fire? We made coal burnt bowls, where you'd make a bowl and then you'd eat out of that bowl I don't have any of those left, but we've got some coal burnt spoons you could make. We'd cook on the fire, of course. You'd cook meals on the fire. It was really special. So, water, fire, shelter, food. We'd collect food. We'd find native bush tucker. Remember one program I did at Denison Pequot Nature Center in Connecticut. The kids wanted to go and harvest grasshoppers. So we went and harvested grasshoppers and we cooked them up. They were delicious, And it's not something we really eat in this country, but I know a lot of Asian countries enjoy them, and that was fun. I haven't done a lot of hunting, but I know other people who have. And we did one class. Justin brought in roadkill. He brought a deer in. He picked it up. He'd been recently hit by a car, and he put it in the back of his car, and we
Ate a meal.
cooked it. We carved it up, and he took the skin and he made buckskin out of the skin, and we had the meal of that animal. Shelter, we built some incredible shelters, some incredible debris huts in a pretty cold climate. It gets cold in Connecticut, the winter season. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But we made some, really good shelters, really fun shelters. Just building a shelter with children is so fun. They're just that process of collecting materials, and everyone's got their own idea in their head about what they want to do, but you can't do that because you're building one shelter together. So it sort of just forms over time. And some of the children slept in their shelters overnight. That was really fun. And then water, fire, food. Water, well, just spending time on creeks, playing in the creeks, skimming rocks on creeks and ponds, setting up little, rock towers and knocking them down, just simple stuff, Does that sound fun? Well, it's fun. It's always fun. It's always been fun, and it always will be fun. And that stuff is incredible. And then water, I've got to tell you this story from the winter. So I did this one program with a good friend of mine, Andy, who I haven't seen in a long time, over in Connecticut. We had a young crew. I want to say we would have had about 10 children, ratio of about 1:5, on the land in Connecticut, winter season, snow on the ground. Some pretty cold days. And the children would have been around, I reckon they were less than 10. I reckon they were 7, 8s, and 9-year-olds. Anyway, Andy and I hadn't really run a winter program before, and we forgot. These kids would just have these massive tantrums every hour or so, and we couldn't work out what was going on. It took us 3 or 4 sessions to work out that we weren't feeding them enough, because we were just eating breakfast, and then we're eating a snack, and then we're having lunch, and then they were going home. But in those climates, you just need to eat more because you're losing so much more body heat. So we just had to eat every hour with the children, and they were fine like that. They were great. We just didn't. Their blood sugar was just dropping too fast. But little things you learn on the landscape in different environments, it wasn't something I was familiar with because I grew up in this country where, most places doesn't get that cold and doesn't stay that cold. This one day, this winter program, it had got cold overnight. So what happens in the winter, if you haven't been fortunate enough to see it, you get a big snowfall that comes down overnight, and then it drops below. No, then it can rain. It can rain, so it goes above zero. And then everything freezes overnight. And so we got to the bridge over the creek there, and there's just icicles that are 20, 30, 40 centimeters long, big icicles hanging off rocks and hanging off trees and hanging off the bridge. And we're like, whoa. And the creek's still flowing in parts, but frozen over on the top, and chucking rocks and smashing ice and stuff like that. And then someone says, well, we need to make a fire because it's cold, we're having fun here, but we're going to sit down for lunch and we're going to be sitting and we need a fire. And someone said, we need to make the fire with the ice. And some of us looked at him and said, what? You can't make fire with ice? He said, yeah, you can. And so we're like, what do you mean? He said, get one of those icicles, get the biggest one you can. So we broke this icicle off the bottom of the bridge there, and we said, break it in half and start rolling it in your gloves. We had gloves on, and we just passed it around to each child. So we rolled it, we'd roll, and it became a sphere, right? So over time, it took us about an hour and a half, and we rolled it so it's melting in our hands slowly, and it becomes this sphere. And if you pick the right icicle, it doesn't have the ice bubbles in it. It's quite clear. And then under the right circumstances, there's just a mower in the background. Yeah. In the right circumstances, you get that sphere and you put it up to the sun, and you can magnify it just like a magnifying glass, and you can get a leaf behind it and some very fine tinder,
Yeah.
and you can make fire. And
Yeah.
we didn't make fire that day because our icicle had quite a few bubbles in it, so it distorted the light from the sun coming through. But we did get smoke. We got smoke. We got the sunlight coming from magnified, amplified through on the back of the leaf. We got smoke. It wasn't real hot that day. There were some clouds, you know. The conditions weren't perfect, but we knew
Wow.
that we could have done it, you know.
Yeah.
We could have actually carried that thing. And funnily enough, the kids were so enthralled by it, and I was so enthralled by it, we had to put that ice sphere in the freezer when we got back to the farm and stuff. We chucked it in the freezer and we got it back out another day. And I think someone actually did at a later stage make a fire with it on a better day.
Yeah. Cool.
Maybe in a different season. So things like that, you're like, whoa, what a, you know,
Yeah.
the collective consciousness about what can happen when people say, is that possible? You know, you're in a group of people and it's like, yeah, I think we could try that. Let's try that.
Yeah, awesome. Because I know that I've seen it on YouTube where someone had a plastic bag with water in it. So it almost sounds similar to what you're doing. And they use that too from the sunlight magnified onto a bit of paper and kindling and all that, and it got it burning. I'd seen it burn. I went, man.
Yeah,
So
it could be done, you know, and that's just a lot of it's just practice, like, you know, going back with fire, learning about what you can do with water. Yeah, it's just an incredible. There's so many things that we can do collectively in nature. Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's,
cool.
It's pretty special, and it's a joy. It's a joy to be with the group out there and learning together. You know, you're learning about nature and what nature can give us, but you're also learning about yourself and how you move and how you stay comfortable and how nature affects us. Yeah.
Was there ever any child in particular that stuck out for you that?
Yeah, I got to tell you about this one child, two boys, that came to the program. This is again in the United States because again I spent more time over there and I've had more time working in this mentorship thing. And there was a few situations at Two Coyotes when I worked down at Kookaburra Culture Wilderness School when I worked down at Brunswick Heads. But this one stood out for me because it was so poignant. These two boys came into the program. I think it was like a fall program, and they were angry. They would have been 9 or 10. They were just pushing kids around. They were shouting. They were aggressive. They didn't listen to instructions at all. We had them for like 2 sessions, and we sat down together as mentors, and we said, I don't know, how do we handle these two boys? You know, they're just wrecking the group. They're wrecking the group dynamic. They're just being disrespectful. They've just got so much anger in there. You know, what do we do? Can we even handle them? And like the group decision was, let's give them 2 or 3 more. We'll let them come for 2 or 3 more weeks. And if we don't see any progress, they've got to go. And that's what we did. So for 2 or 3 more weeks, and the program went for 10 weeks. So it was the first 2 sessions we just went, wow, this is really throwing the group. And the problem, of course, when children do that is the children who have already been at the program and are really comfortable in it and feeling safe, they then become feeling unsafe and uncomfortable. And you've got this whole dynamic again. What do you do with that? Is it worth an individual? How long do you keep them before you say you're not fitting, you're not being respectful, you're not listening? Anyway, we kept these 2 boys for another 3 sessions, and what happened was we talked to parents. There was long discussions with parents, you know, discussions with the children afterwards, you know, a lot of discussion around where do we draw our boundaries as a school, what's safe, what's not safe, how much can we handle? Can we just put one mentor on with these boys who just stays with them the whole time? Maybe tries to keep separate from the group for a little bit, does some separate things with them so the group gets a break from them. We tried lots of different things. And in the end, one of the boys, the parents decided to pull him out. I'm not sure where he went. The other boy stayed with us for the 10-week program. And I'm going to tell you, By the end of that 10-week program, he was not the same child. He was the softest, sweetest, kindest young redhead boy you've ever seen. And he really looked after the other children. He could liaise and talk to the adults. He was a changed human being, and it was 10 weeks.
Wow.
And then he went on to stay in the program for years and became a mentor for other children, you know.
Wow.
And I wonder, you know, I don't remember where that angst, that trauma, that anger had come from. It was there. We've all seen it in our own children. We've seen it in other people's children. We've seen it in ourselves. We've seen it in other adults. But it dissipated. It was transformed into real beauty. It was really beautiful to watch. And yeah, that child became a real key mentor for the school, and he talked about that process. He talked about what it felt like to be held in this space, and he talked about what it felt like to be seen, not just for his aggression and his anger and his violence, but to be seen. You're not just that. There's something more. We can see something more, and there was a lot more, and there is a lot more to all of us. You know, we can't be boxed. We can't be caged. So that was pretty transformational. You know, I hold that one story for me as a touchstone for what can be possible for every human being that ever comes, every child that ever comes through that school.
Wow.
You know, not all of them come through with that level of anger, but we all come with something maybe that we need healing.
Yeah.
And I'm just facilitating that. Let's make that clear. You know, I'm there as a facilitator. I don't have all the answers, but I believe nature has a lot of them. And I believe when I've got other mentors working with me, and I've got other children, and we've got nature, and we've got song, and we've got storytelling, and we've got art, and we've got swimming, and we've got... It happens.
Wow.
Transformation happens, yeah, in those under those conditions, you know.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So, with the Kookaburra Wilderness School, what do you want to see happen in the future, and what would be some key areas that you think could assist with what you're trying to do?
Yeah, just that transformation. I've just got to go back to that mentor, like that metaphor. Sorry, about, you know, like you get a piece of coal, and under the right conditions, under the right pressure, it becomes a diamond. You know. So in that construct of what I want to do, I want to create diamonds of people, because but I need the community to build around that. So what I saw over in the States, and Two Coyotes Wilderness School has been running for more than 10 years, is a community build where everybody's got a role. You know, someone's doing photography, maybe someone's doing a podcast, someone's doing the artwork, and someone's doing the food, and someone's doing the tracking, and someone's doing the song, you know, making songs, pulling songs, whatever. So everyone has this role, and the community is strong. And when someone has a tragedy, someone dies, there's a death of a family member, there's, you know, the dog's sick, someone gets injured, there's people around there to gather around and support, because that happens everywhere. And that's what all our Indigenous mob tell us. You know, there's a story in this construct where I didn't know, but particularly out in that Pitjantjatjara country, it's desert country, it's hard sometimes to find food, hard to find water. But there would be times when those mobs would be desperate for food, and there wasn't food in their country. But that was their country, but there was an agreement over thousands of years that they could go to another mob's country, light a fire on their boundary, call them in and ask for assistance. And they may not have even got on with that mob. They might have been actual enemies, and there might have been a lot of animosity between those two mobs. Not that, you know, that there wasn't. There was probably some in this country, like there is with every human being. It's difficult sometimes, but it didn't matter. The law was you invited them in as your family, and you fed them up. It might have taken months until they had their strength again. and then they would go back to their own homeland. And a month later, you might be fighting them again, and you knew you built that warrior back up from skeletal bones. He was starving to death, but you did that because that's what it took to be fully human and fully alive, and know that we have to support each other, and we are all linked in community, whether we have different ideologies, viewpoints, philosophies, belief systems. It doesn't matter. There's commonality, and the commonality is that we're all human.
Yeah.
And we all live on this planet. And we all have this opportunity to learn from the plants and from the trees and from the animals and the insects. And what do we know about them, you know? Tiny amounts do I know, you know? And every time I'm fascinated, I just went to watch the movie Ocean. Go and have a look at it. David Attenborough, 99 years old. What a great elder in our community to be doing a film at 99 and then 4 years in the making, telling us about how important our oceans are for our well-being. Critical, you know. Nature is us. If we don't look after it, we're gone. And it's not because our cities get polluted. It's because we're we're so undeniably a part of it. It's part of us, our essential being. You know, we're only a few generations beyond back when we were all on the land. Almost all of us in every country a few generations ago. Now we're not. We're sitting in offices, in buildings, you know, in cars, on motorbikes, and you're disparate and disconnected and desperately trying to find that connection that our ancestors probably had greater access to. We've got a lot of things that pull us away from that connective practice. And so we've all got to have our own connective practice, whether that's yoga or whether that's running or whether that's swimming or whether that's surfing or whether that's building a fire in your backyard or putting a candle on in your living room. Those are connective practices, and they definitely work for me. So that school, the school to me is a community. It's a building of community. You know, we've got another event coming up, you know, a solstice event up at a friend's farm where I've done farm camps on up there, and it's a very special property up there because for 10 years the children have been up to that farmland over a 2 or 3 week period, and they've built pizza ovens, they've regenerated the creek line, they've put gabion in the creek, they've planted plants, they've built beautiful art installations, they've built shelters, they've built fire pits, they've done all sorts of stuff on this land. And so I wanted to continue to give back to that land as the farmer Shane Joyce, amazing, another elder in our community, incredible man who's just giving back, building community. So this solstice event we're running is around connecting in with giving back to the land, but also connecting back into our ancestral realms. Connecting back into that ancestral place where our ancestors are out there. I know they're out there, and they're guiding me, and they must be guiding everybody else and you, because I don't know how I got to where I am. I told the story at the start of this podcast. I never thought I was going to be in Queensland. I grew up in Sydney. You know, when I grew up in Sydney, Queensland was not a place to come to. It's like, fuck those Queenslanders, don't go up there. You're from New South Wales, you know? And that state of origin is still quintessentially a part of our culture.
It is.
It is. And I have great respect for this state now, you know, what it's given me. But I still have to go for the blues because that's my state of origin, you know? But at the same time, there's a whole piece around it's good to have friendly competition and camaraderie, but we've got to have this collective process that there's a huge amount of respect there as well. And here comes the
we got the chooks. Chooks are out.
The chooks are out. They're not even my chooks. They're just, I don't know whose chooks they are. They're just coming.
They're curious.
They're curious chooks.
Cool.
So what do I envisage? What do I need to see? I think... people having a commitment to what it is, you know, like I want to be able to run programs where they run for 10 weeks. and that means that you commit to that 10 weeks. You don't rock up for 3 weeks. You know, it's a hard thing for people to do, to make that commitment, to pay the money. There's a price. I got to pay my mentors. I got to pay insurance. You know, I got to pay for equipment and stuff and some resources that I've just got. So it takes commitment. It takes responsibility just to show up. You just got to keep showing up, you know, showing your gift, helping us as a community to find out who's got what gifts, putting your hand up and saying, actually, I can do that, you know, because we don't know unless you say, you know, that you can do that. And that's just for our children. This is the next generation coming through, because they need to know that the adults have got their backs.
Yeah.
Ultimately, they need to be given that message that, yeah, there's climate change out there. Yeah, there's problems. Yeah, look, schools aren't great, perfect places. You know, it's difficult to be an adolescent in this time. It's difficult to be a child in this time. But man, there is so much beauty out there. There is so many people trying to do good things. There is so many incredible natural places to go and visit, and people to view, and things to see, and to find your own gold, you know, to find your gold to give back to the community. So you've got to find it, because everyone's got to find it. When we all do find it, then as a collective community, we become so functional, so beautiful, so easily to do and envisage. And then we start envisaging and creating new things that we never really maybe thought of before. Problems become much smaller, much more easily managed when we collectively try to address them. So yeah, the school is about a community. It's about really trying to move something and change a mindset. Like I call it Kookaburra Kulture Wilderness School, because it's a culture. I actually want to rebuild that culture of resilience, of strength, of diversity, of one-pointedness, like trying to get a task done and do it really, really well, and at the same time being aware of what other people's needs are while you're trying to do that. That's a real juggle. That's a real gift. Yeah, so as I said, supporting people in the community when we really need it. Those things, when we can do those things, our communities become vibrant and strong and creative, and yeah, the world becomes your oyster. I don't even like oysters, but it becomes an oyster. Yeah.
I believe they used to be pretty good in Bloody Marys once upon a time when I used to, but you know, everyone to their own. I suppose then, look, before we kind of wrap up, any final thoughts?
Yeah, the final thoughts are just based around what you're doing, Tara. Yeah, it's like
Okay.
it's just based around telling stories. You know, I really believe in storytelling. I always have. As a child, I loved listening to stories, whether that was Richard Scarry or The Value of books that I had as a child. Books and stories based around values and based around the goodness of society and how individuals can impact, and how small groups of individuals, like Margaret Mead said, you know, it only takes a small group of people to change the world, and indeed they're the only people who actually have, you know, small groups of people coming together in communities in this state, in New South Wales, all around this country, New Zealand, all the way through Asia, all the way through the Americas and Europe. Small groups of people, South America, everywhere, doing important things that help build community. And for me, with my background in education, it's got to start with the children. They're the lowest hanging fruit, meaning they're the easiest to work with. If we get a child early and we work with them to show them the gifts and help them to really find their own gifts, then that can be a transformational piece for the rest of their lives, you know?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then for adults, yeah, it's really important that we find places where they can have a connection to nature. So if they're in a really, particularly those men and women in roles where they have a huge amount of clout and power and money, they can make decisions that are based around the goodness of the nature, goodness of the environment itself, and the goodness of the community around, rather than just shareholders' profits. You know, it has to come back to, it's like, what is the long-term vision? What is the next 7 generations? What's my decision now going to mean for the next 7 generations? Not the share market in 2 days' time. That doesn't work. We can't continue to work the way it's working. So wake up, smell the coffee, and let's have a look at making decisions that are going to serve the community and our predecessors, you know, the ones that come after us. But you can only do that when you've actually felt a connection to nature in the first place, and you really value it, you know. And that's what that ocean movie was so cool, because, you know, Dave Attenborough's had that connection to nature for whatever, since he was very young, probably 80 years.
For 100 years.
Maybe 100 years, his whole life. He's in this position, incredible position, to be able to make a movie and impact so many people, you know. And lots of other documentaries along the way. But you've got to have that experience first. You can get it through a movie a little bit, but you get it way more better if you go and spend a weekend out in nature. You go and camp, or you just spend it with your loved ones, or you do a camp with the kids or something like that. It's very powerful. It's very powerful. And I feel so, I'm just going to end with gratitude. So grateful that I get to do this work with children on the land. It's like, it's joy, you know. It's not always a joy, but it's hard work. But at the end of the day, it's nothing else I want to be doing.
Mate, that's pretty amazing. And look, I'm just going to put it out there. If you're trying to look for his stuff online, he doesn't have a website. So I'd appreciate it if you guys could contact him. But in order to contact him, how can they contact you, Ian? So
at this stage, I'm working on a website. If anyone's out there who's good at that, it's not my forte. But it is important. It's a tool, again, and I just got to get that tool sharpened up. You can contact me on ianoutdoors@gmail.com. So it's just an email address, ianoutdoors@gmail.com. And, you know, I've got a phone number.
Yeah.
0429 625 809. Just text me. At that stage, you know, we can just, here comes the cockatoos. They're loud, raucous cockatoos going, yeah. So just shout out like those guys are. Shout out like the cockatoos, and just send me a text, send me an email, and I will respond, you know, and I'll get in touch, because if people are interested in this work, then I'm here to help you facilitate. You can come and work with me. If you want to start your own thing, I'll give you some tips, whatever, because I really believe this is transformational work, and it's important for our young ones, and it's important for all of us to get on board.
Mate, that's amazing. And look, I'll also leave your email and details and that in the description below if anyone's wanting to get a hold of you. So, Ian, mate, thanks for joining me at the round table, man.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, thank you.